Hey guys, hope you're well. Reporting to you from Los Angeles, and I wanted to talk about the Chrissie Bixler hearing that I attended earlier this morning, in which I essentially made a decent mistake and threw up all over myself. So yet again, I want to make a correction video. I say yet again, this is probably the third mistake that I needed to correct it in the year and a half I've been doing YouTube and making an effort. So is my track record that horrific? No. Should it get better, and does it warrant a video to explain how I really screwed the pooch in this regard? Yes, I think so. I'll admit to you that this evening I'm feeling pretty down, disheartened, and it's essentially entirely my fault. I don't blame anybody else for that. I made the effort to show up to California and cover this May 29th trial. I knew Jacob Harkey was already doing it. He did a better job. I would have said that before as well. And he continues to do a great job. But I figured, obviously, the more the merrier. Covering this case is only a good thing. And the more attention it gets, and the more eyes and viewership it gets, whether it be my viewership, whether it be Jacob's, is a good thing, because ultimately all this press, all this YouTube attention, all this coverage helps tear Scientology down. So I was aware. I went to the Graceland hearing out in Memphis. That I had an appearance with Aaron. No issues there, thank God. That was a very successful appearance. So at least that went well, and that was only about 6 days ago. After that, I connected with Aaron saying, hey, is there something on the 29th? He said, yeah, you want to go and cover it? I'm like, okay, sure. So I would have gone whether or not I was on with Aaron or not, obviously. But decided to book it, and driving from Memphis to Los Angeles, I had about 5 days to do it. So every day, I think it was about 24 hours in total. So every day was about a 6 to 7 hour trip. Manageable for me, but really stunk for the dog and really not fun. So all in all, I've had a great day. But again, I wanted to remark upon something that I really messed up. Now, does it actually throw off the entire understanding of the development in the courtroom? I don't think so. But again, it's the last big mess up I had was I got the with versus without prejudice confused. So it's something similar but more severe. In this situation, I said Jane Doe 1 and her law team and her legal team, and a specific lawyer in her legal team, were issued sanctions for not showing up. It is accurate that her attorneys, Brad Edwards and Brittany Henderson, it is true that those two attorneys were issued sanctions, or at least order to show cause to continue the sanctions. Jane Doe 1 was not. Now, this is a bad error because I was in the courtroom, but these words are flying at you moment to moment. And people have complimented Jacob Harkey because he has this understanding of legalese that is matched by nobody. I mean, he has the perfect legal mind to be an attorney. Me, less so. As people have commented on the double live stream with me and Jacob, I am good at asking the questions. I am good at understanding information they throw at me and then ask them to kind of elaborate if I know they have the space of knowledge. I would like to say that I have a decent talent at bringing out interesting information, pertinent information, by asking the right questions in a conversation. The thing that I'm not as great at, but I want to improve on and still continue covering, is paying attention to every single little word in court and understanding everything by the back of my hand. And that's why I'm blown away by Jacob, because for him, it's just this natural thing that is almost second nature. And in the car ride, I had Jacob on repeat for 6 hours straight. So why did I make this mistake? The mistake I made is because I felt and this is my failing as a journalist, and something, if you're interested in getting into journalism, probably something that you should not do. But it's in awkward situations, and you should always trust yourself first. But I was in the courtroom, right? And a lot of back and forth happens. Everything goes a mile a minute because remember, there's a lot of stuff that happens only in a 15-minute span. So I kind of lost it. And when I was on with Aaron, I was looking at the blog of Tony Ortega, the reporter who I met, who has done a very effective job in the past. She did, and she should probably correct it. She did say that Jane Doe 1 was sanctioned. So in my stupidity, I thought, well, she knows more about court than I do. She's been covering these motions and these hearings. She's covered 5 previous ones, for example, that I didn't get to cover. So obviously, she'd be an authority on this. Not the case. Now, if I had that same set of thinking with Jacob, and I was looking at a written rundown, if he does not have a written rundown to kind of study, then I would have made the right choice. But I guess my failing is assuming that there was somebody who was there that knew more than me, and I should trust them over my own lying ears because I couldn't fully understand my ears because there's so much legal jargon going back and forth. So I wanted to make that correction. That's an important correction. As in terms of what's happening with the trial subsequently, everything else is pretty accurate with that. It won't happen for an entire year and a half because the defense has appealed a bunch of different aspects in the case, and those appeals will be heard. And because of those appeals will be heard, it's going to take an entire year to even start hearing them. The initial plan was to formally start the trial most likely in 2025, probably in the middle, bleeding towards the fall. Now, the next hearing won't start until May, and it will probably roll on, I'd imagine, at least until very late 2025. So Scientology, the Scientology essentially got what they wanted in delaying the case, which of course their tactic is simply to delay, and kick the can down the road. The good news is that the judge himself seems to not be favoring Scientology. He wasn't interested in their anti-SLAPP motion. A SLAPP motion is something where you file to say that this lawsuit is entirely frivolous, and in the public interest, this needs to be thrown out. 3 out of the 5 causes was challenged, and the judge essentially denied that. Now, Chrissie Bixler, feeling that she had some juice post Danny Masterson conviction, decided to add an actress to the plaintiff list, as well as a sexual battery aspect. And you think with the sexual battery aspect, that's an interesting thing that plays out in court. It doesn't necessarily have to play out in criminal court. You could think of Donald Trump, for example. That was a sexual battery lawsuit, which was certainly a significant one. You could think of other cases, Johnny Depp in some situation. So there's a lot of court cases where sexual battery can be fought within a lawsuit and not only in a criminal court. And not only that, but sexual battery can be much more effectively proven in a lawsuit than in criminal court. Of course, the burden of proof is much easier to meet in a lawsuit versus criminal court. So, feeling that she had some fire in the belly, she decided to tack on these 2 extra things and also tack on a RICO charge with Scientology, in addition to the harassment and everything else. Again, all of those, the proposals that we thought maybe today on May 29th, that proposal would be heard. Obviously, it was not, because the can is kicked down the road. So Scientology has the luxury of saying, hey, right now, we're not even in a lawsuit dealing with sexual battery, nor is Masterson. And it's not as bad as perhaps it's projected to be. And so I think that's their case. What's interesting to me is in the future, there won't be much going on, obviously, for a year and a half, but it'll be interesting to look out for, because a lot of interesting information will come out. And I think one of the big aspects that will generate a lot of press attention will be the rehashing and further detailing the incident of Mars Volta, husband of Chrissie, of one of the Jane Does, and the poisoning of his dog. And the way his dog was poisoned was he left his dog out in the yard for maybe 10 minutes. So he saw and supervised his dog before he left the dog in the yard. He comes back 10 minutes later. Dog is sick. He gets into this raw meat appears in the backyard, and in the raw meat is rat poison. The dog very quickly succumbs and dies. Other dogs have been in question, and their deaths have been in question at the hands of Scientology. And Lord, as somebody who picked up a stray dog from the street, Lord knows that people love their dogs, sometimes for better or for worse, more than people. And call me crazy, but I think the rehashing of this specific, horrific, and bizarre story is going to generate a ton of front page news and press like we haven't seen perhaps since South Park or since the Anonymous protests. I really think it'll be a much huger deal than people think. So I will say, as less of a legalese guy, but in my skill as a media guy, to understand stories that stick, to understand stories that generate coverage, I could employ some expertise. And mark my words, I think that's going to be a really big development, and that will very dramatically change the public opinion of Scientology. Obviously, public opinion of Scientology is negative now, but I think it'll create more awareness with the public, and the awareness will only generate hatred specifically. So that's going to be a fascinating trial to look out for. Other than that, I'm bummed out. I messed up. I threw up myself. That happens. Some of the comments will be like, hey, you suck. You're not a reporter. I understand that. Go jump off a bridge. I will decline to do so. And I hope maybe there's some comments saying you're all right, and there's some comments saying, hey, we mess up, but I'm still on your team, and I do generally appreciate the work you're doing and don't think you're a total schmuck. But I'm down on myself, and I might not be down on myself in a week or tomorrow or whatever. But yeah, man, part of this YouTube is me just being honest with people, and being honest about how I'm feeling, and celebrating the victories, and being open about how I'm feeling about the failures. And I've had more than one failure. I've probably had 3, so it's not been a dramatic amount of failures, but certainly a few, and that is the With or Without Prejudice. That is not withholding Mitch Brisker's feet to the fire, and that is expressing that Jane Doe 1 had this sanction on her too, when it was just her 2 attorneys. Ironically, I'm going to say Jacob has better coverage. The funny thing is, it was me and Jacob together. There was a comment which I do appreciate, saying that Jacob was the guy who knew all the information in the info of the back of his hands, and I was the guy who was able to be fascinated by that and ask him the right questions and draw upon his expertise to expounds on some really important, pertinent information that is interesting to the audience. But he gave, as you could tell with the appearance of me and Jacob, he gave a lot of the meat and potatoes. I did say to Aaron, hey, do you want to have me and Jacob on? A, because I think Jacob should get the opportunity, and B, because I'm selfish. I knew he knew. He's been at a hell of a lot more court dates than I have, quite frankly. So obviously, in addition to him just knowing more legalese, not only than me, but I think 98% of humanity. I think he's actually he's a freaking genius when it comes to understanding that stuff. So the burden would have been off me, and I could have expounded as we did in our little back-to-back, and that would have been nice. So I actually asked Aaron about that, and he's like, he only wanted to do one at a time. I emailed him. I contacted him. Jacob didn't, so, I got dibs. I said to him, hey, Jacob has dibs, perhaps on the 4th, or I might go, or we might both go together. But yeah, I just wanted to make the correction. Feeling sad, especially after you make this trip. And I've been up since 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So I've been awake for 24 hours plus 10:25 now. Although it's an hour earlier, so it's like 11. So about 36, 34. I've been awake for about 34 hours, give or take. So can I also blame some of this on a lack of sleep, a bit, but it's an unexcusable mistake. And I threw up on myself, and I'm sorry for that. I hope I didn't let anybody down. I hope you guys are still subscribers. But again, I wanted to get out in front and express how I messed up and express how I hope to be more effective in the future. And I still hope you found the coverage worthwhile. And aside from that, man, I had a great day. Aside from me being bummed to this moment, it was really cool to meet Laura FM, DOA, obviously Jacob Harkey, who I immediately became friends with. And we had such a great time. We had a really, really, really good time protesting at the Big Blue. I wish I could have joined them today, but I wanted to get some food for the dog, take him for a walk, check in the hotel. And I had to charge my phone, and by the time my phone was charged, they were already done. So that's a bummer, although we will go out on Friday. And on June 4th, there is another big court development in the other Miscavige-involved lawsuit, which I will elaborate on the 4th. But I hope you are still with me. And again, if you want to be mean, I don't delete comments, so feel free to expound on how this is a really horrific mistake. Or if you want to just say, hey, I still think you're all right, dude, you know, ultimately, we still understood the crux of the case, and that was the most important thing. I didn't get, you know, I got the dates and everything else pretty accurately, and who was victorious and who was not. Obviously, if you analyze who was victorious, is a bit of a stalemate, right? Because the judge is still on the side of the plaintiffs, but Scientology was successful, as was expected that they would be, in delaying this case for the very quite distant future. So interesting to go to. But yeah, man, I'm luckily there are a lot of court cases, right? So you throw up and you suck, and hopefully the next time you suck less. And I didn't suck when covering Graceland, so at least I'd like to think I have some credibility in covering a lot of these court cases effectively. But if you cover 2 out of 8 poorly, or not poorly, but not as nearly as accurately as you should have, and have covered them somewhat irresponsibly, you know, 2 out of 8 is still a percentage that I'm not proud of, you know, and I'm trying to build on that. As for people saying I'm not doing my homework, man, I was doing my homework. I swear to God, I was listening, reading I mean, that's a problem, right? I was doing my homework. I was reading Tony Ortega, which was incorrect. So that's, you know, it's not for a lack of research or a lack of effort. I mean, it's hard to say I don't put any effort if I just made a massive drive, to cover this. But yeah, guys, that's just wanted to own up. But let's continue the conversation. Other stuff on the agenda. We are gonna head down to Mexico to cover the border. I do speak some Spanish, so I do have some expertise in that regard, and I could ask the right questions. So that'll be a lot of fun. And also, tell me if you want me to slip in 2 days. That's soon, but I'm thinking about driving down to Tijuana to cover an election party, because June 1st is the big presidential election in Mexico. And I thought it was worth covering. Xochitl Galvez is the opposition to Morena, who's the incumbent party. And it's an anticlimactic election. Claudia Sheinbaum, I'm just going to call her Claudia Sheinbaum because she's Jewish, and that's kind of a Jewish American name, Claudia Sheinbaum. But it would be Claudia Sheinbaum, I guess. But Sheinbaum, I think, is polling at 60%, and Galvez is at 30%. And there's a gentleman who's part of the Ciudad Movimiento movement, which is supposed to try to be the most viable alternative third party. They're polling at 8%. So this is a long story short. Although Mexico is very likely to elect a woman, and probably a Jewish woman as president. It's sad because Mexico hasn't had a competitive election since 2012. They have elections every 6 years. And AMLO, the current president, has remarked he ran against Peña Nieto, as I like to call him, Peña Nieto. And he said that Nieto stole it from him because the election was so close. There's a 4% difference between AMLO and Peña Nieto. 6 years previously, AMLO, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, he ran against Felipe Calderón, and Calderón was before Nieto. And again, AMLO lost only by 5%. The tragedy is in Mexico, the close elections that they only had for 4 elections are getting more and more minimal and or are getting more and more scarce. Where Morena some people say they've done great work and have increased the minimum wage, the economy, the peso stronger. The peso is stronger than ever. Other people say that AMLO has created this popular fervor around him because he's controls a lot of media. He created an oversight election that he would have complete control over, and he's exerted his influence with a lot of the local elected officials. And again, with media, he's remarked that he doesn't like this person, and that next day that person will get fired. So he's had an iron fist on the, which is why I'm thinking maybe I need to go, right? If AMLO has an iron fist on the Mexican media, maybe you need an objective. But maybe, I don't know if anybody cares about this election. But let me know if you want me to go to Tijuana to cover either a Morena or, I forgot what it's now a combination of PAN and a PRI, and they've melt together to create one party. Those are the two opposition parties to Morena in the last election. But anyway, that's a long story short of saying, let me know if you want me to go and cover that. Or if you want me to fly to Mexico City probably a month from now to do the inauguration. And check out the Scientology Center as well. But anyway, so you'll see me in a lot of protests. The 4th of June, we have something cool going on Friday as well. We should be at La Poubelle, so I'll be helping out protesting. And yeah, thank you for all the new subscribers. And please forgive me for I know not what I do. Take care. Au revoir.